Today, we will recap two movies together. One is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the other is an independent film called Charlie Says. These two movies are connected by this beauty, this man, and the man's girls. Both movies take us to a date, August 9, 1969. In Los Angeles, where Hollywood is situated, many people believe that on August 9, 1969, the 1960s suddenly ended. Please have some patience. This background is necessary to understand the context. The 1960s represented the counterculture era, an age of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. On this day, the curtain was drawn on this counterculture. Tarantino gave a twist to the ending of his film, while Charlie Says is based on true events. So, what exactly happened that day? To find out, stay until the end. And if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is very important for our encouragement. Now, moving directly to the story. The story begins with Lulu taking a shower. There is blood on her face and hands, and it is clear that the blood is not hers. Outside in the kitchen, Tex and Katie have also bathed and changed into fresh clothes. From here, the story moves 3 years forward to California's special security prison, where Lulu, Katie, and Sadie are imprisoned. Lulu and Katie appear normal, but Sadie seems sad. As part of the prison's correction program, Carlene Faith comes to teach them. Observing their calm demeanor, Carlene cannot believe that they are imprisoned for such heinous crimes as murder. During conversations, Carlene realizes that all three are still completely devoted to Charlie Manson. Sadie's real name is Susan, but she believes Susan is dead because Charlie made her Sadie. Katie and Lulu also praise Charlie, smiling all the while. Through Lulu's perspective, we are taken to Spahn Ranch, where Charlie's recruitment plan brought her through Gypsy, similar to how Pussycat in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood persistently convinces Booth to visit Spahn Ranch. The ranch owner is George Spahn, whom we will meet shortly. Booth knows George well because Western cowboy films were shot on the ranch 8 years ago, and Booth performed stunts in many of them. As Lulu arrives at the ranch, she is warmly welcomed, showered with love, and given a new name. Her real name was Leslie, but Charlie renamed her Lulu. Charlie is the guru of the ranch, but he and his followers consider him no less than a god. In the outside world, they are known as the Manson family. Katie is tasked with introducing Lulu to the ranch's rules. While learning from Katie, Lulu meets Tex, who is still struggling with his ego. Charlie believes that everyone should rid themselves of their ego. The next significant figure is George, whom Booth is eager to meet. By the way, Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a fictional character. Due to Charlie's absence from the ranch, Tex is summoned to inspect Booth, who passes the test. After Tex leaves, Booth inquires about the relationship between George and the hippies, making the ranch girls uneasy. From their reactions, it becomes evident that they don't want Booth to meet George. However, a determined Booth doesn't listen to anyone and heads toward George's shack, causing chaos. Except for one girl, everyone leaves the shack. Inside, Booth is greeted politely by Squeaky, who tells him that George is asleep and cannot meet him now. The more excuses she gives, the more persistent Booth becomes. Finally, we meet George Spahn, an 80-year-old man with poor vision who barely recognizes Booth. Seeing George alive, Booth feels relieved. He realizes that George has made a deal with the hippies. They can stay at the ranch for free in exchange for taking care of him. This was Tarantino's dramatic but civilized version, while Charlie Says adheres closely to true events. After the filming ended, the ranch was turned into a tourist attraction where the hippies conducted horseback riding tours. These are the Tex and Lulu from Once Upon a Time, and in Charlie Says, Katie explains to Lulu that all human desires are natural and that no restrictions should be placed on them. Around this time, Lulu meets Dennis Wilson of the American rock band Beach Boys, a rock star who roams freely on the ranch and is a friend of Charlie. Just a while earlier, Lulu had been taught about the naturalness of bodily desires, and soon after, she encounters a rock star. The next step leads her into Charlie's unrestricted, free heavenly world, far from societal constraints. Leslie's death occurs just hours after she arrives at the ranch, and thus begins the birth of a liberated Lulu. As the day ends, Charlie becomes a messiah, delivering sermons. Daddy Charlie talks about Sadie, who came to him horribly broken and wounded. In front of Lulu's eyes, Charlie frees Sandy from guilt and her past relationships. The Manson family absorbs Sandy into their fold. Enchanted, Lulu tells Carlene in prison that every girl should have a daddy, like Charlie. Charlie taught them that they should only read the Bible and listen to his sermons. Carlene says that if they want to study with her, they need to make a fresh start. Carlene confides to her friends that Charlie had brainwashed those girls completely, and they should try to help them, but her friends are unwilling to get involved. It is revealed that they have been in jail for 3 years. Yet their faith in Charlie has not diminished. This time, we return to the ranch with Katie. That morning, Katie wakes Lulu for a new adventure. They plan to go to the city to scavenge through garbage dumps. Katie tells Lulu that if she wants, she can stay in the city, but at this point, where would Lulu go other than back to the ranch? Before they leave, Charlie tells them that women don't need money. The men at the ranch will handle all financial dealings. The girls don't mind scavenging through the garbage. In fact, they seem to enjoy it. In Once Upon a Time, Even Pussycat's eyes light up with Booth when she goes on a similar trip. Enjoying scavenging through trash demonstrates that these girls were ready to do anything at Charlie's command. In the evenings, they would sit and eat the food they had collected from the trash, always serving the men first. After satisfying their hunger, communal intercourse, orgies, would begin, where everyone was treated equally, and the girls' desires were also taken into consideration. Charlie even used psychologists like Freud in his sermons. Lulu also received her share of love, while Sandy wept bitterly, trying to wash away her past, which disturbed Lulu. Charlie explains to her that this is necessary for Sandy's rebirth. At the same time, he assures Lulu that he is their father and loves them all deeply. Seeing Carlene's genuine efforts, the prison administration allows the three girls to study together in a single cell. They are happy sitting together and reminiscing about the BC days, before the crime, when love was all around, and Mary gave birth to her child. Squeaky took care of George physically and emotionally. Lulu would read the Bible to Charlie, and he would explain how the things written in the Bible were about him and how a destructive revolution was coming. This revolution would involve a great deal of bloodshed and conflict among human races. During this time, Charlie and his followers would hide in a deep cave where only music and love would exist. Once the revolution ended, some of his followers would grow wings and emerge from the cave. Hearing this, Carlene finds it hard to believe her ears. According to the girls, Charlie could never be wrong. When Carlene asks them for their opinions, they have no answers. To distract her, Lulu begins asking Carlene about her family. Carlene tells her that she has traveled to many countries with her family. Hearing the word family reminds Lulu of the time she cut ties with her mother and was living happily at the ranch with her new family. During this time, Charlie also receives some good news. Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys convinces his band to record one of Charlie's songs. While Dennis doesn't promise anything beyond this, Charlie begins to believe that he is about to become a rock star. On the other hand, although Lulu has severed ties with her family hasn't cut ties with her. After 3 years in prison, someone comes to visit her for the first time, her mother, who blames herself for Lulu's condition. This is the first time we see doubt in the otherwise confident eyes of Lulu. Even at the ranch, there were moments of doubt, but Charlie and his group always crushed them. For example, when Charlie learns that Terry Melcher is coming to the ranch, he becomes anxious. Terry Melcher, a record producer, was coming to listen to Charlie's music at Dennis Wilson's suggestion. While Charlie always talked about killing his ego, he suddenly changes. He wants to create a music album with Terry and become a rock star. He insists that the ranch be cleaned and that Terry be served proper food instead of trash. Witnessing all this, doubt begins to creep into Lulu's mind. Charlie dismisses her doubt by saying that even Jesus's followers occasionally doubted him because they didn't know everything. Similarly, everything would become clear to them in due time. As promised, Terry arrives at the ranch and gets straight to the point. Following Terry's orders, Charlie immediately starts performing his songs. According to Charlie's instructions, the girls behave in a way that convinces everyone at the ranch that Charlie's time has come and that the message the world needs is about to reach them. But the truth is something else, which only Charlie knows. His frustration is taken out on Sadie. At the dinner table, Sadie talks back to Charlie, and he beats her severely. When Lulu asks Sadie how she is, Sadie says, "When someone you love hits you, their love is also in that hit." Lulu can't believe her ears. Charlie frequently tests his followers with strict examinations. After the Terry Melcher incident, Charlie's behavior starts changing. He begins talking about racial hatred and violence. According to him, Black Americans will massacre white Americans and win. But after winning, they won't know what to do next. They will need the guidance of a white man, and that man will be the Messiah, Charlie. To debunk such beliefs, Carlene introduces the girls to a black colleague who assures them that Black Americans would never look to a white American for leadership. Back at the ranch, Charlie begins preparing for the violent revolution he believes is coming. He also breaks ties with Dennis because he couldn't secure a record deal. Charlie devises a plan to disrupt the Black Revolution by murdering wealthy white Americans and framing Black Americans for the killings. Around this time, Lulu gets a golden opportunity to leave the ranch when Dennis offers to take her away. Charlie surprisingly doesn't object, but naive Lulu lets the opportunity slip. After Dennis leaves, Charlie takes Lulu to the edge of a ravine and tells her that if she wants to leave him, she can jump into the ravine. That's the only way to leave him. Meanwhile, Tex finally overcomes his ego and burns his ID. Everyone is ready for the revolution. But behind the guise of this revolution, Charlie has something else on his mind. He hasn't forgotten Terry. When Charlie doesn't get a response from Terry over the phone, he goes to Terry's house. There, he meets the famous Hollywood actress Sharon Tate. Sharon informs Charlie that Terry has moved to Malibu. Hearing this, Charlie quietly leaves. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Booth sees Charlie heading toward Sharon's house, where her friend Jay Sebring stops him. When Charlie asks about Terry, Jay tells him that the bungalow now belongs to famous film director Roman Polanski. By then, Sharon herself comes to the door. Jay advises Charlie to contact a real estate agent, and Charlie quietly leaves. In jail, after watching Sharon's interview, Sadie breaks down and asks God for forgiveness for her sins. Back at the ranch, Charlie instructs Sadie and Tex to go to Terry's house. They are ordered to kill the people living there and leave the crime scene in such a way that the blame falls on Black Americans. Along with them, Katie and others also go. This was the night of August 8th to 9th, 1969, which I mentioned at the beginning. On that night, at Charlie's command, Tex, Sadie, Katie, and Linda murdered 5 people, including Sharon Tate. Sharon was 8 months pregnant. Her husband, Roman Polanski, was out of the country at the time. These horrific murders shook all of America. After Sadie, Lulu also breaks down in jail. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino gave this ending a twist. Instead of reaching Sharon's house, the 4 murderers mistakenly arrive at the fictional action star Rick Dalton's house. Rick insults them and drives them away. Now, instead of going to Terry Melcher's house, they decide to kill Rick. On their way, one of their companions abandons them. At Rick's house, they encounter his stunt double, Cliff Booth, who is high on LSD. Cliff, his dog Brandy, and later Rick Dalton, brutally take care of Katie and Sadie. In a way, this is American fantasy, a poetic justice depicted on the cinematic screen. Many people believe that this scene was part of Booth's LSD trip. In reality, the day after Sharon Tate's murder, Tex and Katie also killed the LaBianca couple, and this time, Lulu was with them. We come full circle to where the story began. In jail, Carlene's efforts finally bear fruit, and the 3 women realize that the murders would not bring about any revolution. The murders were wrong, and with this realization begins their lifelong repentance. If only Lulu had left the ranch with Dennis that day.